Right now, there is a battle happening inside your mind, and most people don't even realize they are losing it. You feel this battle every time you try to focus, and your thoughts scatter. Every time you promise yourself that tomorrow you will change, and tomorrow arrives exactly the same. Every time fear speaks faster than logic, and emotion decides before reason can even enter the room. This inner chaos has been normalized, treated as part of being human. But Miyamoto Musashi understood something deeply unsettling. This state is not natural. It is the sign of a mind that has never been trained. Musashi believed the mind was never meant to be trusted. It was meant to be mastered. An untrained mind seeks comfort instead of truth, reacts instead of choosing, panics instead of observing. This is why most people collapse under pressure. Not because life is unfair, but because their inner world has no order. Musashi lived surrounded by danger, hunger, isolation, and death. Yet his mind remained unmoved. He fought duel after duel, knowing that a single moment of hesitation would end his life. And still, he did not rush, did not freeze, did not emotionally spiral. This was not bravery, it was discipline. What Musashi cultivated was a mental state so rare that modern society no longer knows how to name it properly. He called it joshin, the calm, ordinary mind. Ordinary not because it is weak, but because it does not fluctuate. A mind that remains steady whether facing victory or death. A mind that does not cling to emotion, does not resist fear, and does not argue with reality. While most people try to fight their thoughts, Musashi trained himself to stand above them, observing without attachment, acting without inner noise. This is where his philosophy diverges sharply from modern self-help. Musashi did not teach motivation. He did not teach positive thinking. He did not encourage emotional expression as a solution. He taught dominion, control at the deepest level, where emotion loses its authority over action. He understood that the mind left alone will always sabotage the body. It will create doubt where there should be clarity, fear where there should be presence, hesitation where there should be movement. If you look honestly at your own life, you will see the same pattern repeating. The problem is rarely a lack of ability. It is the moment your thoughts interrupt your actions. The moment your mind negotiates when it should obey. Musashi believed that the man who cannot command his own mind has already been defeated, no matter how strong, intelligent, or talented he appears. True control, in his view, begins when emotion no longer has the power to delay action. This forbidden technique was not written as advice for comfort. It was forged for survival. And once you begin to understand it, something uncomfortable becomes clear. Most suffering does not come from circumstances, but from the inability to remain internally still when pressure rises. Musashi's discipline was designed to eliminate that instability at its root, not by suppressing emotion, but by placing it in its proper position, beneath awareness, beneath command. What makes Miyamoto Musashi's discipline truly dangerous is not what it adds to the mind, but what it removes. While most people try to gain confidence, courage, or motivation, Musashi focused on subtraction. He understood that the mind does not need to be strengthened first. It needs to be cleared. Cleared of excess thought, emotional attachment, and inner commentary. Because in moments of real pressure, the mind does not rise to the level of its ideals. It falls to the level of its training. Musashi observed that hesitation is born the instant the mind starts negotiating with itself. The moment you ask, "What if?" the body delays. The moment you imagine outcomes, fear takes shape. The moment you become emotionally invested in success or failure, your awareness narrows. For Musashi, this was the root of defeat. Not lack of skill, but mental interference. His forbidden technique was built to end that interference before it could form. At the center of this discipline was a radical idea. Do not attempt to control thoughts as they arise. Instead, refuse to give them authority. Musashi trained himself to remain in a state where thoughts could pass without being followed, emotions could appear without being obeyed, and fear could surface without becoming command. This is not suppression. Suppression creates tension. Tension creates collapse. What Musashi cultivated was something far more precise: non-attachment with absolute readiness. He practiced placing his awareness not in his thoughts, but in his body and surroundings. In combat, this meant feeling the ground beneath his feet, the weight of the sword, the rhythm of breath, the space between himself and his opponent. When attention is anchored this way, the mind has no room to spiral. There is no internal debate, no imagined future, no replaying of the past. There is only the present moment fully occupied. This is why Musashi appeared calm even when death was imminent. His mind was not wandering into outcomes. It was rooted in now. Most people live the opposite way. Their bodies exist in the present, but their minds are constantly elsewhere. They rehearse conversations that have not happened, relive mistakes that cannot be changed, and imagine dangers that do not exist. Musashi saw this as self-inflicted suffering. He believed the undisciplined mind turns life into a battlefield long before any real enemy appears. Through years of isolation and relentless observation, Musashi refined this inner state into a permanent posture of mind. He trained himself to move without inner commentary, to act without emotional permission, to see without labeling. This is why his writing feels cold to many modern readers. He did not concern himself with feelings. He concerned himself with clarity, because clarity, in his experience, was what kept a man alive. The forbidden nature of this technique lies in how directly it confronts human weakness. Musashi did not try to comfort the ego. He dismantled it. He believed that the ego's need to be right, to be safe, to be recognized is what fractures the mind under pressure. When those needs are stripped away, something unsettling happens. Fear loses its grip. Anxiety dissolves. The mind becomes quiet, not because life is easy, but because it is no longer being resisted. This is why Musashi warned against becoming emotionally attached even to victory. Attachment creates tension. Tension creates anticipation. Anticipation creates distraction. A distracted mind cannot respond cleanly. For Musashi, true control meant remaining unchanged, whether facing success, failure, praise, or death. The same inner posture in every circumstance. Calm, alert, unmoved. As this discipline deepens, the mind begins to obey without argument. Action happens immediately, without internal friction. There is no need for motivation, because there is no inner resistance. This is the state Musashi lived from. Not emotionless, but unentangled. Not passive, but fully present. A mind so quiet that nothing inside interferes with what must be done. And once this state is understood, it becomes clear why Musashi believed most people defeat themselves long before life ever tests them. Their minds exhaust them. Their thoughts weaken them. Their emotions command them. Musashi's forbidden technique was designed to reverse that order completely. Miyamoto Musashi understood that a mind capable of remaining calm in battle is not built in moments of danger, but in moments of quiet. This is where most people fail. They seek control only when life becomes intense, when pressure rises, when emotions overflow. Musashi did the opposite. He trained his mind when nothing seemed to be happening. In solitude, in routine, in ordinary moments that others consider meaningless. That is where true discipline is formed. He believed that the mind reveals its weaknesses when it is bored, distracted, or seeking stimulation. When there is no threat, no urgency, no reward, the mind begins to wander. It creates noise. It looks for escape. Musashi saw this wandering as the same force that causes hesitation under pressure. The root was identical. A mind that cannot remain still in calm moments will never remain still in chaos. So he trained stillness deliberately. He would sit without seeking comfort, without entertainment, without emotional relief. Not to empty the mind forcefully, but to observe its habits. The urge to move, the impulse to think, the desire to escape discomfort. Musashi did not fight these impulses. He watched them, and in watching, he weakened them. What is observed without reaction slowly loses its power. This was one of his most misunderstood practices. Many believe discipline means force, tension, or harsh control. Musashi knew better. Force creates resistance. Resistance strengthens what you are trying to suppress. Instead, he practiced unwavering awareness. When a thought arose, he did not follow it. When emotion appeared, he did not obey it. When discomfort surfaced, he did not seek relief. He stayed. And by staying, he trained the mind to endure without disturbance. Over time, this practice reshaped his internal structure. The mind learned that it did not need to react to every impulse. Silence became familiar. Stillness became safe. This is why Musashi could enter combat without internal noise. His mind had already been trained to remain unmoved in far less dramatic conditions. Musashi applied this discipline to every action, no matter how small. Walking, eating, sharpening his sword, writing, observing nature. He believed that how a man does small things is how he will do everything. If the mind is scattered while performing simple tasks, it will scatter under pressure. If attention is divided during routine, it will fracture in moments of danger. He trained himself to do one thing at a time, completely. No mental commentary, no impatience, no anticipation of what came next. This single-pointed presence was not a technique reserved for combat. It was a way of living, a way of existing so fully in the present that the mind had no space to create unnecessary suffering. This discipline also required the removal of emotional dependency. Musashi deliberately avoided seeking approval, praise, or reassurance. He understood that the need for validation creates emotional hooks. Those hooks pull the mind outward, making it vulnerable to disturbance. A man who depends on external confirmation cannot remain internally stable. His mind will always be at the mercy of circumstances. Through isolation, repetition, and relentless honesty with himself, Musashi forged a mind that did not seek comfort. Not because comfort is evil, but because dependence on comfort weakens control. He chose simplicity, not as an aesthetic, but as a strategic necessity. Fewer desires, fewer distractions, fewer attachments. Each removal strengthened his inner authority. What emerges from this training is not emotional numbness, but emotional clarity. Musashi still felt fear. He still felt pain. But those sensations no longer dictated his actions. They existed without command. This is the essence of his forbidden technique. Emotion is allowed to exist, but it is stripped of its power to interfere. Most people try to change their lives by changing circumstances. Musashi changed his life by changing his internal posture. He trained the mind to obey even when it resisted, to remain still even when discomfort arose, and to act cleanly without internal debate. This is why his discipline feels severe to modern minds. It demands responsibility. It removes excuses. It leaves no room for self-deception. By the time Musashi faced an opponent, the battle was already decided internally. Not because he was certain of victory, but because his mind was no longer a variable. It would not panic. It would not hesitate. It would not sabotage the body at the decisive moment. And as this way of living settles into place, a profound shift occurs. Life itself becomes less exhausting. The constant mental friction fades. Decisions become simpler. Action becomes immediate. The mind stops arguing and starts serving. Miyamoto Musashi's forbidden technique was never meant to belong only to the battlefield. Combat was merely the place where its truth was revealed. The real training happened in life itself, where distractions are endless, pressure is constant, and the mind is tested not by swords, but by fear, comfort, and indecision. What Musashi understood centuries ago has become even more urgent today. A fractured mind cannot live clearly, and a reactive mind cannot live freely. Modern life is designed to pull your attention outward. Notifications, noise, urgency, opinions, expectations. Each one demands a reaction. Each one fragments awareness. Musashi would have seen this not as progress, but as a continuous assault on the mind's authority. He believed that when attention is constantly stolen, the mind forgets how to command itself. It becomes obedient to impulse instead of will. The application of Musashi's discipline in the modern world begins with a simple but uncomfortable shift. Stop negotiating with your mind. Most people treat their thoughts as advisors. Musashi treated them as signals, nothing more. A thought appears. It is noticed. It is not obeyed. An emotion arises. It is felt. It is not followed. This single change restores hierarchy. Awareness above emotion. Command above impulse. He would train this during moments when the mind resists the most. When you don't feel like acting. When discomfort appears. When boredom whispers escape. These are not obstacles to discipline. They are the training ground. Musashi believed that every time you act without waiting for emotional permission, you strengthen internal authority. Every time you remain still while the mind urges movement, you reclaim control. This does not mean becoming rigid or cold. It means becoming clear. A clear mind responds appropriately instead of reflexively. It knows when to act and when to remain still. It does not waste energy arguing with reality. This is why Musashi's calm was not passive. It was alert, alive and ready. Stillness was not absence of action. It was preparation without attention. One of the most powerful effects of this discipline is the disappearance of mental exhaustion. Not because life becomes easier, but because the mind stops fighting unnecessary battles. Most fatigue is not physical. It is the friction created by inner resistance, the constant debate, the constant anticipation, the constant emotional noise. When these are removed, energy returns naturally. Musashi's forbidden technique also changes how you experience fear. Fear no longer feels like an enemy to be defeated or a weakness to be hidden. It becomes information, a sensation, something that exists without authority. When fear is no longer in command, courage is no longer required. Action happens anyway. This is why Musashi did not romanticize bravery. He rendered it unnecessary. As this way of being integrates into daily life, something subtle but profound occurs. You begin to trust yourself again, not because you feel confident, but because you act regardless of feeling. You stop waiting for the right mood, the right moment, the right certainty. You move when movement is required. You remain still when stillness is needed. The mind learns its role: to observe, to inform, not to rule. This is why Musashi's teachings feel forbidden. They remove the comfort of excuses. They eliminate the illusion that change requires motivation. They reveal that control has always been available, but rarely claimed. The price is responsibility. The reward is freedom. Musashi lived and died by this principle. A man who cannot control his mind will be controlled by everything else. Circumstances, emotions, other people, fear of loss, desire for approval. But a man who commands his inner state remains free even in constraint, calm even in chaos, steady even when the world shifts beneath his feet. This discipline is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is built in moments no one sees, in choosing presence over distraction, action over hesitation, awareness over reaction. And over time, these small decisions reshape the entire inner world. The battle you are fighting has never been outside of you. It has always been within your own attention. And once that is reclaimed, life no longer feels like something happening to you, but something you move through with clarity and control. This is the forbidden technique Miyamoto Musashi lived by, not to dominate others, but to master himself. And in doing so, he left behind a truth that remains just as dangerous today as it was then. The mind that is fully under command cannot be broken.